Welcome back, everybody. We came in here to start with and we used a hot mud. It's sort of a plaster-like product. You mix it with water, you get a certain amount of time before it catalyzes and cures, and then it continues to lose the moisture and dry on top of that. So this is a 45-minute. You can get 20-minute, you can get 90-minute. I like that. It sands more difficult. It's more difficult to sand than the air dry products. So to start with, it's the deepest layer in my drywall project. I use it to stabilize big gaps, build up little areas that are kind of messed up. We had a funky area here that was like a long thin piece of broken up existing wallboard that I just smoothed it out over. And you can kind of see the roughness of that, the patchiness of it here, but that all lies below the final finish. And so it kind of just locks in all the edges, and I won't have to pack a lot of mass of the air dry product into that gap when I'm taping. And then all that mass, when that stuff dries to harden, it loses all that water and it shrinks and cracks because it loses that volume. That's the nature of it. It's to be used in thin layers on the surface, the way that glazing putty and stuff is. Whereas the hot mud is more of a Bondo. You can make it quite thick mass, and when it dries, it's physically stable and doesn't crack up on you. So we did the hot mud first and got it all on everything, and then we left for the day. And then we came back today and we were going to do our taping. Now our taping is going to be done with ordinary all-purpose mud, or taping mud if you live in Canada. I think that they label it specifically. It's got binders and glue in it, and it really takes and works with the paper tape really well. They work hand in hand. So we did all of the longitudinal joints today that go in this way, and we'll do all of the other, bisecting joints, and we'll do that as another day, because the thing of it is, the follow through at the end of these joints is going across this nice smooth tape that we have got right here. So we get that right, and then we come through and we get this right, then this needs to be adjusted, then that needs to be adjusted, then this needs to be adjusted, and that needs to be adjusted. It's a pain. And just we do the same when we do corners. We do on an inside corner, we work on one side one day and the other side on the other day. So we will be doing things like that. We're about to leave today because we were able to do all these joints that run this way, and we got the stuff that's little, run around corner there, because I could be careful here to work with everything. And I got that face joint there and this little corner here. I think I did over there. No, I didn't. So we'll come back and do that. You don't want to lose, you don't want to do things like this where, oh, I just got to remember to do this, and oh, I just got to remember to do that. If you're running all over the place, you're going to have multiple wash-ups, multiple tool breakouts, multiple visit days, and it starts to become less profitable. Then again, you have the guys that race and race and race to do everything together at the same time, and that, in my mind, you have to be really good, and I don't do this all that much. So because I want really good quality work, I will take my time to a certain extent. Now, something else that I want to mention is if I were to start this, now this is the inside corner bead that was part of this kitchen renovation, and I can see that it wasn't appropriately mudded or something, because the paper, which is a part of, it's like a vinyl plastic inside corner, sorry, get up there to it, it lifted and it pulled right out of here. In every other place that I was doing the renovation, it came right out as one piece, and it was basically just trapped under surface mud and never bonded through and through, which is a concern to me. If I keep going here and I try to cut that back and work to it and making it wet with the mud, and I come back, it's just going to constantly be a loose edge. So before I get going here and tape, this is the one seam that I didn't get to do today that would normally have been done. I will super glue that down so it's not fighting me. And we're getting the same kind of problem here. See that area there? That's all gonna just keep lifting as you go, and as it gets wet with mud, it just keeps turning into trouble. So we're gonna have to treat that special. But that's, again, part of the art project that is finishing up this ceiling. Sorry for my eternally clearing my throat, but it's just what happens, man. And then these are all going to be factory edge to factory edge, so they have a taper. It's what's called a flat joint. When it's done, you basically fill that taper and strike it off with tape in there, and you've got a flat surface that's copacetic with the board surface. Now these butt joints where the cut edges of board come together, that's actually going to be a product of a feather edge, and I'm going to exaggerate, but ramping way up and over and then ramping down into a feather edge, and this giant hill is extremely subtle, and that floats us visually over that. When we paint it, we don't notice that. That's how, that's technically what you've got happening for geometry when you're finishing drywall. So Then, of course, our screw holes and stuff like that. But for today, I just wanted to get the major long seams taped and have them looking good. And then next time, we'll tape all the short seams and we'll apply the corner bead, the outside corners, which go on these here. And once again, a lot of times you see the board stop short on both sides, and people think, well, you're just going to cover that with corner bead, it's no problem. Of course, that's no problem, but if you put a big mass of air dry mud underneath there, and then you apply the corner bead with that, it's trapped underneath, it dries funny, and when it dries, it breaks up and cracks, and generally speaking, the corner bead isn't bonded there anymore. It's just stood there, and it's got finished dry mud on top, but it's not bonded, which bothers the shit out of me. So we went around until we found good quality corner bead. It can be had better. I'm looking for a big flange here, as big as I can get. And a lot of it's the way they stored it. This was from Home Depot. But the way that they store it bungles it all up because the paper edge is the leading edge. So I dug around and found myself 3 nice pieces for next time. So we'll apply those and we'll do all the short seams and we'll have everything. And we'll do the one I forgot and we'll super glue that down. Oh, think you're just going to get out, hey? And then we'll be at a position to move from taping mud or the regular all-purpose, and we'll move to a dust control which has heavy dust that falls down, or we can even go to an ultralight product which is extremely easy to sand. And what we're trying to do here is do most of our smooth feathering with our tools and not rely on a lot of sanding. So I was pretty fast and loose with the hot mud, and I knew it would be deep down beneath our finish, but there were some lumps and bumps left over this morning, so I started with a cursory pass on everything with a rasp. You can replace these screens for the rasp, but it's an extremely aggressive and everything falls right through, so this buzzes those relatively soft lumps of hot mud down real quickly. And then we got our spatula tool for digging our mud out of the buckets and stuff that they come in. Look at that, you can see Chazzy in there. Hi, Chazzy. And then we got a selection of knives, narrower knives for doing inside and outside corners and being able to apply more pressure for the same hand pressure. There's less surface area on the edge. As you go wider, it's more difficult to apply good pressure. A 5. Sometimes I don't want a 4 and I don't want a 6. And a 6 is pretty common overall for taping, which is what I mostly used here. You want to break your corners. They want to be pointy but not razor sharp, or you'll have everything all messed up. These are actually older than they look. I like stainless steel tools for the most part because everything's constantly wet. Paper tape and a little dispenser for that because it gets out of control without that, and this will hang on my belt, which I really like, so that guy works well. I have a Phillips screwdriver in my pocket most of the time. If you find a high screw that you didn't realize was a little proud, you can always twist him in a couple turns and then fly over him. Nice mixing bit, and like I say, everything looks kind of new because you want to get it completely clean every time. I even wash the lid of the mud container before I put it back on because little dried up crumbs starting now and going forward will ruin your drywall work. You're pulling them through and gouging everything all the time. It's like getting a rock in your plow and it just makes a big gouge. So you want to constantly work at maintaining the integrity and the quality of the mud. Brush for cleaning up. Mixing bit all washed off. Gravy boat from the gravy dock, or there's another word for this that escapes me right now, but anyway, he's stainless steel as well. And sometimes I work off a hawk, which is more of a masonry tool. This is just a hawk. And you can use a trowel on it the way that you would for mortar, but I end up just using the knife off of the hawk. Sometimes that's what I want, so sometimes that's what I get. He's easier to pull clean with a knife. This takes more practice to dig in these little corners and clean them out with a knife. And the mixing bit, I mix the water into the hot mud, but I actually also whip up the ordinary air dry mud. There you are, huh? And to get a nice smooth velvety consistency out of that too. So, and there's a variety of different mixing bits. He's a different style than the other, but he's too aggressive for a small container and maybe sometimes too large, and so you want to be aware of that. I got a towel rolling all the time, some clean buckets. Here's some of my wider knives. I may replace these, because this is the reason I go with the stainless. They just get rusty. They're spring steel, and if you look at them, they've actually got, it's going to be hard or impossible to see, they actually have a subtle arc to one direction, and that's, you want to sit that down and it'll drag your corners sometimes, and other times you want to sit the middle down and not leave corner marks, and so you want to work with the kind of natural arc that it has. And these are springy, that's why they're blue, it's spring steel. And I don't know why anybody would want things to rust, so I may move to stainless steel. But that's the general amount of tools and layout. I got a big heavy duty drill for mixing the batch. You don't need that if you're only going to do a little bit, but overall I'm liking where things are headed. And we've also already been asked about expanding the bathroom, which is nice to know. People are pleased even before the project is finished, and they want you to come back and do more work. So we may be doing a big bathroom modification here, but I'm looking forward to another probably 40 hours or less spent here, and we probably have this painted out. And I may be taking a color sample and spraying out onto the existing ceiling and saving the effort of painting literally to the edges all of the ceiling here, but that remains to be seen as well. Anyway, things are coming along, and we'll come back and see when everything's been taped and maybe look at a few blending repairs. This is a low spot I could see from this new light. It exposed the fact that this had a pretty wonky surface finish here, which you never saw before because there wasn't a light there. It was only a light over there. So this light skitters down the wall. In fact, you can see some of my tool marks there as a result. But I just put a little scribble there with a pencil so I didn't forget. It's a bit of a low area, and we'll try to dress him in with a wide knife and a big sanding disc and take that dent out of the wall that's there so our new light doesn't just highlight that kind of an issue. So we want to do what we can around here while we're right here with the tools. Somebody's got to go back in the basement. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.